everyone. So, welcome everybody. My name is Walid Mehanna, and I've got today with me Emre Ozcan, my Global Head of Digital Health and Devices. And today we will share a few insights from our journey at Merck. Merck is a bit of a special company. For those of you who don't know it, I like to portray Merck as a 357-year-old scale-up. Why a scale-up? Because if you survive that long as a company, you have to have one capability, and that is pivoting. So what started off as a pharmacy went into producing drugs, went into what is today a multinational corporation, active across healthcare, life sciences, and electronics. When we think about AI, we like to think broadly. So what if we can use the power of AI, not only to predict health outcomes, but also to transform the pharmaceutical innovation and optimize treatment pathways? Obviously, this is something that is on the mind of many practitioners also in the group. We're doing okay, I would argue. So a recent CB Insights study put us second globally when it comes to the AI readiness in pharma. There is two things that you might notice if you go a bit deeper on this slide. Number one is Merck is not leading in any single dimension, but Merck is always under the top three when it comes to execution, innovation, and talent. So we earned this place by not having any lapses and not, let's say, covering any base. But after all, and that's the second piece, it's about readiness, which means we are well prepared, but now the game starts. And let's talk about that game when it comes to our strategy. And our data and AI vision is we harness the transformative power of data and AI in everything we do to spark discovery and elevate humanity. I know that's a mouthful, but it's got three core aspects. Number one is transformative. We strongly believe AI is not just a trend, not just a fad, but is a potentially disruptive technology. The only question is when and how, and not if. The second piece is in everything we do. We like to obsess about drug discovery because it's one of the hardest problems that we have. But ultimately, a patient cares more about the whole value chain. It is about interaction with the patient, it's about adherence, it is about the value chain. How can we make sure that we bring more drugs to more patients faster? And then the last topic, AI is a mean to an end. It's not an end in itself. And this is why we also put up our company purpose, which is sparking discovery, elevating humanity, as the ultimate end that we're doing these things. And when we talk about AI, you will not catch me not talking about data, because AI is not a competitive advantage in itself, because everybody can buy the same AI from the same vendors. Some of us can maybe also train and fine-tune their models, but that is also a gradual advantage. So how you use AI is a potential competitive advantage. But the killer feature of making AI useful is quality data. And unfortunately, many organizations didn't put too much love and too much effort into data, making it a first-class citizen. So that is a foundational topic we also need to talk about. When we want to reap the benefits of AI, we have to take care of data. It's not fancy, it's not sexy, it's hard work, it's not always rewarding, but there's no shortcuts to this. So when you talk about AI, please think about data and make sure that it's part of your strategy. And this is also why our group data and AI strategy, the GDAS, is an important piece. So I'm a German citizen, but I was born in Egypt, and that's why I sneak a pyramid into every presentation. That's my pyramid of the day. It's our AI adoption pyramid. So this is how we build AI adoption across the company. We start with the people. We start with the personal productivity, because that is the foundational literacy and fluency that we need to have across the company in order to be able to use AI in a very targeted manner, to put it to good use, because we know what it can do, what it can't do, and maybe what it could do tomorrow. But what we can do tomorrow, we do tomorrow. What we can do today, we do today. That is the beginning, and we're also doing pretty well on that part of the journey. The second part, the middle layer, this is where it becomes interesting. This is when we weave AI into everything we do, into the full value chain, into our operations, into the R&D, into the labs, but also in the patient interaction, in the HCP interaction, and the commercial side of things. And the tip of the pyramids, for those of you who know about the old Egypt, was golden. And also the AI pyramid is similar. It's golden. Everybody wants to have the golden tip of the pyramid. But I always argue you can't build a pyramid the other way around. So you have to work from the bottom up with quality data, with a good literacy of the organization, with AI being part of your end-to-end value chain, if you want to really put it into the hands of your customers, your patients, and your partners. And that's exactly what we're doing, and we'll also be talking to this in a bit. Let's talk about the base layer. We introduced our internal version of ChatGPT that we call MyGPT in June 2023, 6 months, 6.5 months after the ChatGPT moment. So we are a very early adopter on those topics. So today we have, out of 63,000 colleagues, 34,000 actively using it. So MyGPT has become the #1 non-mandatory tool in the company. And that's exactly the adoption, that's exactly the base layer that we want to have. And for that to happen, we needed to lower the entry barrier for people to get comfortable with AI, to learn on their own terms in everyday environments. And today we have more than 1.4 million prompts executed every single month, and over 18 million prompts executed over the time. So looking forward, so this is what we're doing. Maybe let me give you a bit of a glimpse where I believe things are going. When I think about AI, in my role as the Chief Data and AI Officer, I always feel like this young gentleman, like Frodo from Lord of the Rings, because I feel like everybody's trying to sell me the one AI to rule them all. And to be honest, I would love that. I would definitely buy. My biggest problem is only I hear the same story from all of the big vendors. Everybody wants to have the one AI, wants to be the one AI that we can rely on. Unfortunately, we live in all of those ecosystems, and I'm sure you could add 15 other bubbles to this slide. So we already operate in those multiple ecosystems, and those ecosystems will not go away. So what's the deal with AI? Where will this go? And my conviction is AI will definitely be the integrator to make the patient experience and first the employee experience more seamless, more integrated, because I don't have to switch between different user interfaces and I don't have to go into different applications. And this is exactly the future that we're now building first internally for us, because as I told you, the pyramid goes from the bottom to the top, and the top is the patient, the customer, and before expose ourselves to the patient, we expose ourselves being our customer zero first. And that is now what we're building with the next evolution of MyGPT, a seamless AI ecosystem where AI and agents are useful to the people by integrating the data and having a personal context for every user and ultimately every patient. If we think this even one step further, and this is just to leave you with an idea from a startup, and this is not an endorsement, but what I love about early stage startups is they have never dealt with the FDA. They have never dealt with the German Workers' Council. They don't know a lot of pains we know. And that's great, because they can imagine what could be much more easily, because when we look at this, we think about, oh my God, all the pains we have to go through to make this reality. But again, take it as an idea. And that idea behind this one is a small video that we will play now that ultimately will allow us to have a glimpse what happens if AI moves from being reactive into being proactive, and also knowing your context, knowing what you're working on, knowing your preferences, knowing your documentations, knowing what you're seeing. And I know, I'm equally terrified and excited about such a future. But for me, ultimately, it is about AI being useful in the mission. And when AI gets more and more knowledge about what I want to achieve and allows me more and more to be able, we can get to the tip of the pyramid and be more useful to our patients and our customers that we serve. And with that, I'll hand it over. That was the opening remarks, and now we come to the main act, which is Emre.
Thank you, Walid. Great to be here. So I'm the apex of that pyramid. I'm leading with my wonderful team here, and colleagues are around the care innovation agenda for Merck Healthcare. And you've seen all these wonderful things on what the AI can achieve that Walid generously elaborated on. And then the puzzle remains. If we can do all these fantastic technological innovations, why is that healthcare is lagging behind, let's say, consumer goods or banking when it comes to really transforming the patient care delivery? We are in the healthcare systems are dealing with some of the most complex, conservative, human-touching industry where we cannot break things and go fast. And keeping that human autonomy is an essential part of what we're trying to do. But as we do that, we know the digital health is on its way to transform healthcare systems. And innovation here in this context is born out of the necessity. Let's look into France, the growing and aging population. 20% of the population is going to be above the age of 75 by the end of this decade. And then when we look into the amount of healthcare resources that is required to be able to do that, so in France, there is one medical oncologist for every 60,000 people. So if we were to average that, we don't have a single oncologist among us. So when it comes to the fundamentals of this, our view as Merck is the elements of the change are there. And what we started seeing over the last couple of years is a vast adoption from the patients, from the clinician about these digital tools. Today, an average European spends more than 3 hours on their smartphone. And imagine that as the point of access and the point of data collection on what we could be done. So let's talk about some of the real problems we're trying to solve in this space. So as Merck Healthcare, we started focusing a lot about the rare diseases, where the prevalence is low, but the burden of the disease on any person or their caregiver is vast. So today, 60% are delayed in their diagnosis. And for those that might have, family members suffering from their diseases, they know how difficult it is to get to a right diagnosis. So the visual is a bit funny, not for the lack of the visual skills of the slide maker, but to represent the complexity one has to navigate to get to there. It takes about 6 to 8 years to diagnose the patient in the right way when it comes to the rare diseases. And then if we go to the other ones, is 60% of the patients get misdiagnosed along the way. And imagine the amount of burden it puts on the healthcare system, on the patient, to be able to deal with this. And then when it comes to access to the specialist, 80% will suffer from having regular access to their specialists. And we know that we cannot build our way out of more hospitals, more clinics, more medical doctors and oncologists out of this. So the approach we're taking is, how can we bring the very best of digital health innovations, technologies to address the concrete problems here and now? So in the rare tumors world, the amount of data available is vast to be able to detect the early symptoms of who might be suffering from what condition. The digital biomarkers idea. Right now, I look around it and I can see probably 50 phones taking a picture and probably about 500 phones in the space that is constantly collecting data about how you move your eyes, the way your voice works, the way your fingers might be even shaking. That gives us fantastic clues about the early diagnosis of the things. And especially, I would like to encourage everybody to join the masterclass later given by my colleague Imogen, David, and Fulvio to tell about the way we're bringing the digital health innovations for the growth of our children, which we know is extremely well received by children and their caregivers in that complex care management. So I would like to skip some of the elements that Walid talked about, how we have managed to improve Merck and the healthcare systems around it. And there are 3 lessons that I just like to leave here. One is look at, not at the solutions, but look at the problem statements, the concrete needs, the concrete opportunities out there. And it is then about integrating these innovations into the healthcare systems. There is no solution out there that will be able to fix the healthcare systems, but there are many solutions out there that could be worked into scale within the healthcare system. Another point here is, here we're full of pharma companies, medical technology companies, but none of us are necessarily the providers, the nurses, the healthcare practitioners. And the importance here is building the solutions with them for their uptake. And this is a novel approach for the drug pharmaceutical industry that has taken a very different approach that. The second one is the value care-based models. Today, interoperability is defined as a feature, whereas it should be the foundation, as Walid was talking about in this. And then get us into a comparison where we could really compare what works and what doesn't. And then the last one, and I think this is a great event for that, creating this enabling environment for the innovation. No single actor in healthcare will be able to move the needle. So that requires a deep penetration and a partnership, especially orchestrated by the health authorities, and an ability to really see the health before the care and the person before the patient to be able to make that difference. So thanks a lot for your time and listening to what we are doing to be able to move the needle for the delivery of the healthcare patients every day. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you both.